Hi, this is Letty. I want to talk to you about 3 things you can do to help a table be better. What I'm talking about are input masks to ensure that data goes in looking the same, a lookup field which helps a person to choose from a selection of choices, and a validation rule which ensures that data goes in properly. Let's look at the student table in Design View. And while I'm talking about navigating to Design View, when I'm in Design View, this icon takes me to Datasheet View. When I'm in Datasheet View, this icon takes me to Design View. Get used to toggling back and forth like this. It's the most efficient way to move around in your database. So in Design View, when I click on a field, I can see the properties for that field down below. Let's look at the properties for this first name field. It's a text field. That means that it's going to be a field that holds text. It's been limited to a field size of 15 characters. It's got a caption. A caption means that if the field name doesn't look pretty on a form or on a report, just the way this doesn't because there's no space between first and name, that you can make the name look prettier on those items. It's not the real name. The real name for this field is field name with no space, but it'll look better when you use it. And there's not much else going on here. I would like to point out that there are properties that you can not use at all, and that's fine. Now, here's the gender field. It's been set to 1 digit. Now, the reason it's been set to 1 digit is to help ensure that people don't enter bad data. Anything that you do that helps you to make sure that people who are using your database enter data correctly is called data validation. And data validation comes in many forms. And so the 3 things we're talking about today are part of that. Setting a field size for a gender field to 1 helps ensure data validation. And another thing that could help is something called a validation rule. If I want to ensure that people only enter the letter M for male or letter F for female, I can also create that rule here. My syntax has to be perfect. I'm going to type it in M space or space F space. Now, when I click away, Access is going to correct my syntax to be perfect. M surrounded by double quotes, the word or, and then F surrounded by double quotes. Now, this means that I have made sure that nobody will enter anything but an M or an F, or it just won't accept it. Now, what if I have somebody entering data in my table who doesn't really know how to use Access very well, or is confused about why they can't enter boy or girl or male or female as full words? The validation text is to go along with your validation rule, and it just helps explain what's going on. What you type here doesn't have to be perfect syntax. It just has to help the user. So I'm going to type, please enter either an M or an F. So here, notice when I click away, it just stays exactly what I typed in. It's just explaining the validation rule that's in use. I'm going to save my table and go out to Datasheet View and scroll to the gender field. So you can see the gender field is in use right here. Here's somebody put in an M, and that works perfectly. What if I try to put in a T? There's no such gender as T. It gives me an error message with my validation text. Please enter an M or an F. So you can see how that works. I'm going to press escape, and I don't need to change that. Okay, back to Design View. Let's talk about doing a lookup. I could do lots of different kinds of lookups, but let's add a new field to demonstrate it. I'm going to say that with every student that registers at my college, I'm going to give away a free gift. And a student has to choose what kind of free gift they want. So I'm going to type in a field to say free gift, and I want to keep track of what a student chose for their free gift. And for this, I'm going to give a selection of choices. And to do that, I'm going to choose a lookup wizard. Now, when a lookup wizard finishes, it actually finishes as a text field. But in the meantime, we're going to tell it what we want. The first step of the wizard is to say, do I want to go look at another table and say what's available? So for instance, if I had a gifts table and I had 3 different records in that students could choose from, I'd want this first choice. But in this case, I want the second choice. I'm just going to type in the values of the choices that I want, and I'm going to choose next. So here's where I'm going to type them in. So I'm going to say they can choose a t-shirt, and I'm going to press tab to get to the next cell. They can choose a mug, tab, or they can choose a coffee card. So they go to the coffee stand and get some free coffee. Now I'm going to choose the next step of this wizard. There's not many steps. The last one is to say, how do I want the field to be named? And of course, I'm going to stick with free gift, and I'm going to choose finish. So as you can see here, it just looks like a regular text field. But if I go down and look at the properties, there's a lookup tab where I can see my choices, t-shirt, mug, and coffee. And when I go out to datasheet view, and I go to that column of data, when I click in here, can you see that the down arrow actually allows me to choose some of those choices? Another thing that happens when you've got a lookup established is that if I just start typing in T, it enters the data for me. And it means that if I'm entering data by hand, it's very fast. If I enter a C, it wants to fill in coffee card, the down arrow will just lock in that choice. Now you notice that I didn't have to put anything in these columns. A lookup doesn't enforce it, and in fact a lookup doesn't say you can't put in something else. So let's say a student says none. I can type in none and it will accept that even though it's not in my lookup list. A lookup does not restrict all entry. It just gives you choices and helps you spell things better. If I wanted to query my data later and find out how many students chose to get a coffee card, well, I could ensure that somebody didn't just enter coffee like, whoops, hang on. Coffee and space. It would be harder to enter coffee without card, if you see what I mean. It could be done because I haven't restricted it to that, but it really is much easier to make sure everybody's entry goes in the same. Okay, so that's lookups and validation rules. Let's go back to data and let's talk about an input mask. When you have a phone number, you almost always want to use an input mask, and I'm going to go back to the General tab, to make sure that the phone number goes in with parentheses, with the number of digits, space, and then number of digits again. This syntax would be very hard to remember, so fortunately Access gives you a wizard that helps you create an input mask, especially for commonly used things. So for instance, if I decide I want to keep track of a student's cell phone, that's a telephone number too. It is going to end up being text. So I don't need to change that. It has to be text because there are going to be things stored in this field that are not numbers. For instance, we want parentheses and hyphens stored, and you can't store anything that's not a number unless it's a number in a number field. So you have to use a text field for that. Okay, so here's where you put in an input mask. And notice when I click on this property and click the build button that appears over on the far right, this is this little square that has the 3 dots called a build button. This is what allows me to get at the input mask dialog box or wizard. It already is suggesting that I might want a phone wizard, and I do. I'm going to choose next, and I'm going to choose next again. I don't need to choose anything here. I'm quite happy with placeholders and everything as it is. And next again. But here is a stage of a wizard on an input mask that is a very important one. By default, it wants to store the numbers you type into a phone number without the symbols. I suggest that you always choose with the symbols because that way later if you're creating a mail merge directory or something, the phone numbers are going to look nice. They're going to have those parentheses and the space and the hyphen. This doesn't look nice for a phone number, and you don't want it to be like that when you ever use your data somewhere else. Okay, so always go through the wizard choosing to store the information with the wizard symbols and choose next, and we're finished. that puts the syntax in here for you. You don't even have to think about whether or not you need a zero or a hash sign or an exclamation point. I suggest always using those wizards to help you get your syntax correct. Well, let's go check out our input mask. I'm going to go out to Data Sheet View, and I'm going to scroll over to my new cell phone field. Now, whenever I put an input mask into a field and I want to try it out, what I usually do is go and click in the field that's just to the left of it and then press the Tab key. That puts me right at the beginning of the input mask field on the left side, and now I can try 425 555 1212. It works perfectly. It looks really good. Let me show you what happens if I just click in the field. Can you see how clicking in it just puts me somewhere in it, and then I need to get to that beginning so that I can try it out. It's just easier to click in here. Whoops, I'm going to escape. Click in here, press the Tab key, and then start. Okay, I'm going to escape because I don't really want to store that. I just wanted to show you those three things. Those three things are part of data validation, making sure that data goes in correctly the first time so that it's useful when you're querying it or printing it out.